Are you sick and tired of playing the T69 Premium in the Chinese tech tree, constantly getting up tier to battle rating 9.7 due to the terms? Have you got $60 spur to blow your load on a new Chinese Premium? Well, you're in luck. The ZTZ-96A is the newest premium added to War Thunder, coming with a 125mm gun, a soft kill protection system, and thermal imaging. This new Chinese Premium certainly does fill a capability gap that was present in top tier China. The old T69 Premium lacked thermals and was pretty much based on the first generations of main battle tanks. With the ZTZ-96A, China finally gets a modern top tier premium vehicle. But is it worth your money? Well, that's the point of this video. The ZTZ-96A is a rank 6 battle rating 9.7 medium tank located in the Chinese tech tree. It shares the same battle rating as the T72A terms, so should predominantly get battle rating 9.7 games, meaning you will tend not to get up tiered that much. This in theory gives you a sort of preferential matchmaking. Anyway, this tank is a pack premium, meaning it must be bought off the Gaijin store. For the low price of $60, this tank could be yours. Once you've bought the tank, it will cost you 10,000 silver lines to put it in your crew, and for the expert and ace qualification, it's 1,210,000 and 2,100 Golden Eagles respectively. In terms of customization, there are a few camouflages available for Golden Eagles. With the Chinese tech tree already having a strong premium lineup at battle rating 8.3, is it worth investing in this tank and playing a rather barren battle rating 9.7 lineup? Well, let's take a deep dive into this tank's performance and find out together. Starting as always with the mobility and survivability, and the tank is powered by an engine producing 800 horsepower. Combined with the vehicle's weight of 43 tons, it gives the tank a rather poor power to weight ratio of 18.6 horsepower per ton. For some perspective, for comparison, this is slightly lower than the Challenger 2's power to weight ratio, a tank well famed for being an absolute brick on the battlefield. The tank does have a pretty good top speed however, of 60 km/h going forwards, but it is very let down by its reverse speed. Like the Soviet tanks the Chinese based this vehicle on, the ZTZ-96 has a terrible reverse speed of only 6 km/h. While this is better than the contemporary T72s, a reverse speed of 6 km/h is absolutely dog shit. Anyway, like a lot of the Soviet tanks, the ZTZ-96 is pretty fast in a straight line, and can generally keep up with other main battle tanks. This is when you start to turn or manoeuvre where the true weaknesses of this tank is shown. Like the Challenger 2 I mentioned earlier, the tank is incredibly sluggish when you are trying to manoeuvre through tight spaces. This isn't too bad on wide rural maps, but if you get a map like Advance to the Rhine, where you've got lots of 90-degree corners, the tank does suffer because it just feels very heavy and very sluggish. As I said though, this is quite common for Soviet vehicles, and due to the Chinese using the chassis of Soviet tanks for the basis of their own tank fleet, it's kind of an inherited disadvantage. Well, moving on to the survivability, and there's another Soviet disadvantage. That is a low crew count. The ZTZ-96 has a crew of 3 men, with a driver in the hull and a gunner and commander in the turret. This basically means if a round penetrates your tank, you are likely to die in a single shot. But we do have a few features which should minimise this risk. The first of which is the FY4 ERA, or Explosive Reactive Armor. This gives you 50mm of protection against kinetic energy munitions, and 350mm against chemical energy munitions. At battle rating 9.7, this is only really going to protect you from helicopter ATGMs, as well as the ATGMs fired by infantry fighting vehicles. Most large caliber heater fast rounds will over-penetrate 350mm. This ERA is mainly present on the upper frontal plate, as well as the sides of the turret. We also have an Electro Optical Active Protection System, the JD3. These basically act the same way as the dazzlers on the T90A. They disturb the guidance systems of incoming SAKO missiles, like the TOW missile. At battle rating 9.7, this is not the primary threat you will face on the battlefield. While you can encounter these missiles at top tier, it's mainly APF SDS rounds being fired at you. So just like on the T90A, these dazzlers on the turret are largely just a gimmick. But if we look at the armor protection itself, and using the tank's own gun at a range of 200 meters, we can see that the upper frontal plate gives you pretty good protection with 460mm. Bear in mind however, this is with the addition of the FY reactive armor, so once that ERA has been destroyed, the frontal hull will be rather weaker. If we move up to the turret, we can see that the cheeks are pretty weak, with only 450mm of armor. While this will protect you from most of the early guns at battle rating 9.7, there are a few guns at 9.7 and certainly at battle rating 10.0 which can go straight through your turret cheeks. It's also worth bearing in mind, just like the British main battle tanks, the ZTZ-96 has a very large frontal weak spot. The gun breech takes up roughly 1/3 of the turret front. This means a round anywhere in the centre of the turret is likely to knock out the gun, if not killing a few crew members. So just like the Challenger 2, even though it is slightly lower battle rating than that tank, your armour cannot be relied on to tank shells. So I would not advise trying to brawl in this tank, as a competent player will just shoot you in your frontal weak spots. We saw just then in the armour section that our ammunition could penetrate over 450mm, and for a battle rating 9.7 gun, this is very good, and you're certainly not wrong there. This tank is armed with a 125mm Type 88C cannon, with 40 rounds totally carried. The same way the Chinese use the T-72 chassis for a lot of their tanks, they also use the same autoloader, giving the ZTZ-96 the same 7.1 second reload time. At battle rating 9.7, this is pretty slow, there's no way around it. You will not have a fire advantage over enemy players. And pretty much like all other Chinese and Soviet tanks, you have god awful vertical guidance characteristics, with 12 degrees of gun elevation and a terrible 5 degrees of gun depression. This makes it quite hard to put your decent turret armor to work, as it's quite hard to go hull down. But the gun on this tank is by no means bad. And bearing in mind you also get a thermal imaging sight for the gunner, as well as a battle rating of 9.7, this tank certainly is very punchy. But what about the ammunition? Well, our stock round is the DTP-125, a Heat FS round. It travels rather slowly at 905 meters per second, but it can penetrate 480mm of armour. This is by no means a bad stock shell, but this is a premium tank, so you don't have a stock round, so I don't see why you'd ever need to use this round. We also have the DTB. This is a high explosive frag shell. It again has quite a low muzzle velocity of 850 meters per second, and it can penetrate 45mm of all armour due to its 5.5 kilo warhead. Like many of the Soviet high explosive rounds, this is pretty good for trolling if you really wanted to do it, but it's quite unreliable and takes a lot more skill to use, especially compared to our next round, the 125-1 round. This travels much faster at 1730 meters per second and is an armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot round. At a range of 500 meters, it can penetrate 458mm of armor. This is similar to the Soviet 3BM42 Mango round and is very powerful for a battle rating 9.7 shell, allowing you to penetrate pretty much everything you will ever come across, especially if you're familiar with the weak spots of most of the main battle tanks you'll face. Apart from the reload rate of 7.1 seconds, you can't really criticise this tank's firepower really that much in my opinion. It has a very high penetration gun, good thermals, and a decent amount of armour to go along with it. While you can criticise the mobility, it's pretty much the same story for all of the Soviet standard main battle tanks. One fairly decent criticism in my opinion is the lack of a lineup at battle rating 9.7 for the Chinese. You do have the Tech Tree ZTZ-96, as well as an anti-aircraft gun, and the 8x8 tank destroyer, but this isn't a great lineup in my opinion. I do think the battle rating 8.3 premium, the WMA, is a little bit more competitive. The Chinese 8.3 lineup is well flushed out, and most importantly, you ignore the 9.7 battle rating Black Hole that you would find at battle rating 8.7 and above. This gives you lots of down tiers to 7.7 and 8.0, which allows you to grind pretty effectively. This is personally how I have grinded out the Chinese Tech Tree, using the WMA, the ZTZ-59, and some of the other great battle rating 8.3 Chinese vehicles. And while I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money, I think it'd be a lot better for newer players, and frankly more enjoyable for experienced players to play battle rating 8.3 China. It's a little bit slower paced, you don't get spammed by helicopters and CAS all the time, and it's generally just an easy grind. So if you are looking to grind out the Chinese Tech Tree, I'd recommend the WMA and staying at battle rating 8.3. However though, the ZTZ-96A is by no means a terrible premium. I just don't think it's very approachable for a newer player. As I've said, it does have a good gun and decent armour, but it's at a very hostile battle rating. 9.7 and below, 9.0 to 9.7 is probably the most played battle rating at the minute, and it certainly isn't very enjoyable for grinding and playing. It's very try-hardy at the minute and just very frustrating. So my recommendation is to stay at 8.3, chill out, do a little bit of grinding, and piss people off with the WZ-305. But that's just me, you guys might have a different experience. At the end of the day, it's your money, do what you see fit with it. Spend $60 on a premium tank, or donate it to some e-girl on Chatterbait. I don't really care. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. And if you really enjoyed it, please do consider becoming a member of the channel. Just like Deboa LX, Just Someone, Destroyer 1805, Dr. Bob, Tans, William Tessier, and Lola Alfonsi. Thank once again for watching, lads, and I'll see you in the next review.